Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of the Loan Officer Marketing Podcast. We have Todd Bookspan with us. Todd, great to have you on the show again.
I am thrilled to be here. As I said before, it's been too long. It's always great to connect with you because I think you're such a thought leader in the industry, and I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Right on. Let's get right into it. So I know you work with a lot of top producers and you work with achievement and really kind of getting the most out of your day. And so I'm very interested in what you're seeing top producers doing in the market right now to generate results. What are you seeing out there?
I think it's such an interesting market that we're in because we've had such ups and downs on interest rates, and we've had ups and downs on emotions. And so I think that the biggest thing I've seen that top producers have been able to do is they've been able to remain positive and they've been able to move forward regardless of what's going on around them. They're not allowing the news of the day. They're not allowing, what's going on with uh, rates and with their real estate agents' mindsets. They're keeping their mindsets positive and they're working to help everyone else have their mindset. And so ultimately what the difference I think between someone who's actually crushing it in this market and someone who's doing okay or really struggling is that they still have a plan. They're not allowing the other stuff to impact the plan. And then they're making sure that they execute the plan every single day.
Yep, 100%. And I think just having that focused time set aside in the day, a daily success plan, or you know exactly what you're going to be doing with your time because so many top producers and just great achievers in the world always say I always focus on my priorities before I focus on my inbox or with which is basically a list of other people's priorities that they have for you. So what are you seeing as the habits that the top producers have? What are the activities that they do that are really moving the needle to bring in applications, deals, relationships?
Well, you kind of nailed it, right? They know what not to do, right? I think that they've
Huh.
got a really good filter that says no. So like every day when I have my planner at the top of it, it's like, what are your top three things? And I write a big no with an exclamation point because it's I'm going to be more successful this year by what I say no to than by what I say yes to. And so number one is you have to be okay in a world where you're trying to please people, you're trying to please partners, you're trying to please clients, and you actually do have to, you just said it, you have to put yourself first and be crystal clear on that. And I think that what people forget is that most of us fell into the mortgage business. We didn't have, some other, we didn't go to college or we didn't, get brought up and say, hey, I'm going to, loan officer. We just fell into it somehow. And in our previous lives, we actually had a schedule. We had a job where we had to work and do things. And so I always laugh, like if I'm talking to a group of older folks like myself who might be a little gray in their hair, I'm like, all right, who here worked at McDonald's? And there's always a few hands in the room that'll go up. If I'm working with a younger crowd, I say, hey, who here's worked at Starbucks? And there's always going to be a few hands that go up. But when you have a job like that, you actually have to be there at a certain time. If you're working, at the front counter, you have certain activities that you're required to do at certain times. If you're there for closing, you're going to do certain things before you close. If they're open, you do certain things. And I think we forget that when we get into the business of sales, where we're effectively an entrepreneur, we're self-employed, and we allow other people, as you said, it to dictate our schedule and email or phone calls or texts. And I think a lot of people know my story. I was doing pretty well in loans. I was doing about 400 loans a year for 3 straight years, about $80 million. But I felt stuck. I wanted to be $100 million loan officer. That's what all cool kids were. And I'd written that down in my business vision and I said I could get there, but I just got stuck. And I think what people also forget to do is review. So you have to kind of look at what is it that you did to get to where you are. And I looked at my year and I said, gosh, I had a lot of appointments in the morning. I had a lot of things that were scheduled for me by my wife, who runs our team, by my assistant, who ran my life, by my business development manager who set appointments for me. And they all set appointments when it was convenient for them or the person I was meeting with. And so when I went into that next year, it was a flat year in Phoenix, Arizona, where I did loans. Interest rates were the same, housing sales were the same. Nothing, didn't land some big builder account that year. Nothing crazy. But I just blocked my calendar from 8:30 to 11:30 every day, and did the activities that I wrote out in the schedule I was going to do. Nothing, unique. I mean, call leads every day, call applicants every day who hadn't given me their documents, and then did target day activities like a lot of coaching programs teach. Update calls on Tuesdays, call your pre-approved clients on Wednesdays, call realtors on Thursdays, annual mortgages on Fridays. And because I stuck to that schedule and I was really pig-headed about it, I pretended it was a real job versus me just showing up whenever I wanted to show up. And in that flat market, I grew from 400 loans to close 551 loans and about almost 115 million that year. And so what I realized is that by having a schedule, by being crystal clear on what it was, that it was an opportunity for me to be better. And guess what? It worked. My conversion rates went up. More people started referring me because I had better conversion rates than my competition. And so that is a lot jammed into one little couple minutes such sentence there.
Oh, that's amazing. But it's that focused activity of the things that we know are actually going to move the needle. And we talk about that and focus all the time. So I'm known very much in the mortgage industry. I would like to think so. Who knows? But I'm kind of the technology
Heck yeah.
guy. So but so a lot of people come to me and they're like, okay, where are the leads coming from? Where's the marketing coming from? Where's the razzle dazzle shiny object coming from? And the longer I'm hanging out with top producers and responsible for growing a mortgage team and that sort of thing, the more I realize that it's the shiny objects that actually rob people of production. So when you saw that massive growth in your business, did you find some magical lead source, or where were you focusing to bring those loans from?
I was focusing on the number of calls I made every day. I was focusing on the quality conversations I had with people. And then I worked that schedule like my life and business depended on it. And guess what? It worked. And so you start off the call saying what are your top producers doing? Well, that's what they're doing. They have a schedule, they block and tackle during that schedule, right? If social media is an important thing, guess what? You should probably do social media. I was in Dallas last month. I was hosting an Exactly What to Say 2-day certification, and the hotel happened to be right next door to Denise Donahue, the mortgage nerd's office. So I'm kind of a jerk and she's a friend. So I just showed up unannounced at her office. And guess what? Her door was closed. She was recording her videos. And her assistant said, well, this is her time block for recording videos. Now, I wasn't enough of a jerk that I opened the door and interrupted her video. I actually let her do her thing. But, that's an example of a top producer who says, okay, I've got to do videos and here's when I'm going to do it. It's on her calendar. She's protected it so that people can't interrupt it. And she got it done. And so I think that that's really what most people need to do is look back at your schedule this past week, right? So, and we were talking before the show, I'm literally having my team members and myself, I'm tracking everything I'm doing in my planner. So I have on the left column, it says, here's what I'm supposed to do. And then on the right side is, here's what I actually did. So I'm trying to see how efficient I am. Where are the black holes of social media and email that I'm following into, and then really being intentional around what it is that I'm doing. Because in the end, we know the activities we need to do. It's not rocket science, right? I listened to your recent podcast, and I forgot the gal's name, but she said she's been in the business for 40 years. She said that she got a list of clients to call, or past clients, and she made 23 calls, got 12 refinances, and then 4 more people called her back on to refinance. Well, I mean, again, it's not rocket science if you actually make the calls. But if I called 100 loan officers, right? If I called you who's listening to this, have you actually called your database this year? And the answer is maybe. I hope it's yes. I talked to a loan officer this morning, and he said he's already got 10 refinances set up for when rates hit whatever the next rate drop is. And my question is why not you? You have those people. You can do it. You just have to choose to make the time to make it happen. And when I talk about productivity, it's not sexy, but guess what? The results, the closed loans, the income that comes with it, that is pretty sexy.
Yeah, 100%. And activity. So there's so much there to unpack. Well, I'll try and stay succinct to the method. So let's take past database for an example. And so a lot of people, I think, will dance around the activity that's actually going to generate the result and say, okay, I'm going to do database marketing. So I'm going to shoot a video and email it out. Or all of the other activities like making phone calls. Do you see that one activity that tends to get the most results?
I mean, I think it's right now your database, right? I mean, in the end, I have a belief that for most loan officers, you actually have all the money that you want to make this next year is already in your database. You already know the people. It's the realtors that you've worked with in the past who are no longer referring you. It's your clients who you have potential refinances with who are thinking about moving, and you think because you have a 2.5% mortgage you did for them that they're not thinking about it. But you know what? You forgot that in the last few years they could have had another kid, they could have had a kid go away to college and move out. There's other reasons that people are moving. And so I think it's just a matter of really looking at, okay, you know what, if I've got 100 people I closed loans for in the last few years, could I call 5 a day over the next 20 days? Could I call 10 a day over the next 10 days? And the answer is yes. It's just a choice of doing it and then thinking about what you're going to say. I understand call reluctance, right? I still have call reluctance, but I spent time to think about what's the opportunity to have, right? And I think that there's an easy opportunity right now to talk to people about, kind of the schizophrenia of the market, right? You're feeling it as a loan officer. Guess what? Your clients are feeling it too. They're nervous about it, and so you know what? Give them a call, check in with them. The weird part is that I did a bunch of annual financial reviews. The way that I get out there and coach and teach and train is by rolling up my sleeves and doing what it is I ask other people to do. So I did probably 50 about annual financial reviews this summer, and it's really weird. The thing is, people actually wanted to hear what I had going on in my life. So that was cool.
Hmm.
And right, I was asking them what was going on in their life, and then that was pretty cool. And by the way, my number one takeaway is when they asked me what was going on. With Dave Savage and Kristen Messerly, we founded a nonprofit called First Home IQ, where we're teaching financial literacy in high schools and colleges. And when I told people about that, they all said, "That's really cool." So by the way, that's my pitch for First Home IQ. When I tell people now, when I go out to like a networking event, I don't say, "Hey, I run a mortgage team," or "Hey, I got this thing called Win by Noon." I say, "Oh, I got a nonprofit where we teach financial literacy to Gen Z," and they're like, "Oh, tell me about that." And most of them said, and these clients are all in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and some in their 30s said, "Gosh, I wish I would have had that.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had that too." So, but I do think that there's just such an opportunity there. And what I uncovered in those phone calls was, number one, is that connections matter, that people actually were excited to hear from me. Number two is I found that there was actually hidden opportunity. Someone who's like, "Oh my gosh, you got me this great loan." I don't tell people, but I secretly did 683 loans during COVID. So people think, "Oh, Todd doesn't still have it," but guess what? I still did. And then had to hire someone to get myself back out of the mortgage chaos that I created for myself. But they were happy to hear from me. The people who said, "Hey, you got me this great mortgage," they would say, "Oh yeah, thanks so much. I'm never gonna, I love it forever." And I'd be like, "Well, don't you feel like you're stuck, like house hostage?" And they're like, "Oh gosh, yeah. As soon as rates get to 5, I'm moving." And I'm like, "Okay, bingo, like check mark. There's a future loan." And so there's just so much opportunity in there if you actually just pick up the phone and call and just be vulnerable, right? I mean, they're happy to hear from you. They're going to be nervous, and so I think I'm not the only one out there saying this, but there's so much hidden opportunity in your database. Just go out there and make some calls.
Oh, 100%. And so first off, congratulations on the charity. That is absolutely amazing and so necessary in our world. The fact that it isn't one of like the core courses, like the fundamentals of money, is beyond me. So thank you for taking that to the marketplace. That's very needed. Second, I think we all understand call reluctance. I've got call reluctance. You've got call reluctance. We all have call reluctance. But when you take it down to the activity, so we got a focus day, and let's just say we're going to pick the day of the week, Wednesdays, we're going to call our past customer database. We know that we're going to do the activity, and then all of that little guy or gal that shows up in the back and makes the excuse as to why we shouldn't call the database. Oh, they haven't heard from me in 3 years, or I haven't called them, or rates are too high, so I shouldn't call today, or any number of the objections that you get from that. Do you find that having a process that you follow where it's like, I'm going to call my database, so it doesn't matter what the distraction is that's going to come in my head, I'm just going to make those calls on that day? Do you find it helps get rid of that call reluctance?
It does. I mean, if you wake up and you just knock it out. So 80% of you listening to this are early morning and morning people, and only 20% of you are afternoon and nighttime people. And
Hmm.
even you nighttime people and afternoon people, oftentimes you're too distracted at the end of the day or afternoon to actually do the things when you're most wired to do it. So I just say schedule it for first thing in the morning before you already mentioned it, get sucked into your email, and then just have a plan. Who are those people going to be, right? So you may actually have to spend 30 minutes creating the list and figuring out who are in my database I'm going to call, and then think about what your process is, and then set a minimum standard. So one of the things I do find when I talk to top producing loan officers is they have a standard. For me right now, I still talk to 10 realtors a day. So it might take me 15 dials, might take me 10 dials, but I talk to 10 realtors a day, and that's a commitment I have. It's a standard I set. Now, full disclosure, yes, I only talk to 8. Oh, so guess what? I'm going to talk to 12 today, right? I'm not going to give it up. Now, ironically, I talked to 15 on Monday, and so I actually am 5 ahead, but I'm still, even though I'm still consider myself 2 behind. I don't take that success I had that one day and roll it to the next and say, "Oh, I
Yeah.
can do less calls." So number one, I have a commitment to myself. I set a standard and I do that. When I was doing my annual financial reviews, it was 5 outbound dials to clients a day. So it was a little different. I tracked it slightly different because I couldn't predict who was going to pick up the phone. And so I would encourage
Mhm.
you to make a process for it. I'll tell you what was successful for me for my annual financial reviews, because at first I just started calling people, and I didn't have the success of people answering the phone that I thought I was going to have. Surprise. And And then people who did answer the phone were like, "Oh my gosh, Todd, what's going on? It must be an emergency. Like I haven't heard from you in a while." And then they were all busy doing something. And so then I actually just went to a simple text, and it was just like, "Hey, it's Todd Bookspan, your favorite mortgage guy. Hey, we're overdue for our annual financial review. Do you have time this afternoon or tomorrow?" And that was it. And I would give them a question that they had to answer something to, and then I tried with a Calendly link. That was pretty successful too, where I would give them a window where they could schedule it out on their own. I just set it up so they could only use the Calendly link over the next 10 days. Originally, it was for a couple of weeks, but then if they would schedule 3 weeks out, then they were probably likely going to miss that.
Yep.
But I did find that text was a little bit of a bump. And then I followed up the next day if they didn't respond to the text. Hey, didn't want to be bugging you, but hey, did you see my text above? So I would text them 3 times. Had about an 80% connection rate. So there was 20% of people who still didn't like me enough to want to call and schedule with me. And I think that's what we all get nervous of, that you're going to get the no's, right? But my fantasy mind was I'd have 50% of the people talk to me. So to get 80% to talk to me was a huge success. And not everyone needed a loan. That's okay. I made some great connections. Calls went anywhere from about 10 minutes for the uncomfortable ones where I hadn't built great rapport with the people before or just forgot too much about them or vice versa. Had some that were like an hour long call. I mean, I couldn't get these people off. I mean, I don't know, like name their kids after me or something. But, ultimately, I think that's really it. I think you just have to get some momentum. And so I think that's the other thing I would say is when you get the first no, when you get the first call that was really hard, you just have to say, okay, let me do the next one right now and get it over with, because that's really the key. So I made calls in the morning, did all the text, the outbound activity, and then I set all my calls in the afternoon. Because again, if you're a bit like me, you're really good at talking in the afternoon. You're not as good at being laser focused and trying to work on
Yep.
systems and dialing stuff out. So that was my other strategy that worked pretty well.
Oh, that's amazing, man. There's so much there to unpack. Okay, so first thing, so we're tracking, and this is part of the Loan Officer Breakfast Club, and a lot of what we do there is we've discovered that we're actually generating more loans from calling the database by the referrals that we get from the database than the people that we're doing the mortgage reviews with. Because like you said, not everybody needs to do something right now, but chances are every other call, they're going to know somebody who's actively looking to buy, sell, or refinance. And when you've got the scripting for that call of making sure that you just ask and there's a little follow-up afterwards, there's a ton of referrals. So the only reason that I mention that is because I don't want people listening thinking, oh, hey, the only opportunity that I have in connecting with my database and going out and doing these calls to my database is to generate business from the database. It's actually the referrals that are more, as we tend to see. Do you see that as well?
100%. And the other part of it is you have to remember too, you also have call reluctance in calling realtors, especially that realtor that you only closed that one loan with a year ago. Well, it's really great to say, hey, I just talked to Chris. He said to say hello, and I just want to give you an update, and here's what the update is. And so you also have a reason to connect with the real estate agent, and that's, I think, the other hidden piece of it. But you kind of nailed it, right? You just have to know what's the script. What are the questions, right? One of the things that you have to think about is that curiosity fuels great conversations. And so you just have to go in and be curious and have a heart. I know you all do, or you wouldn't still be in the business, to care for the person and ask those right questions. And then I love the idea of having a script. Like, what's your best referral script that you guys talk about in the Breakfast Club when you're asking that person at the end of that conversation, the who do you know question?
Yeah, so it's, hey, can I count on you when you come across friends, family members, or coworkers that are actively looking to buy, sell, or refinance, that you put us together on a two-way text message? Can I count on you for that? And so super simple, but you say it 10 times and it just rolls off, and man, it sticks. People remember it. It really
It
works.
sound really lame, but I just got chills when you said and put us on a two-way text, like add them to the text. Because again, you're also training them how to give you the referral. Because what happens is they're like, hey, yeah, just call my guy Chris, and here's his number, and then you don't have the ability to grade. I always remind people, I think loan officers, we're the best at following up with people. Like, we do a great job when we're given that lead, and we just need to get the lead the right way. So I love the script, can I count on you, and then B, the whole directions on doing the text message, right? You're training them how to best refer you, which is just, that's pure gold.
And what I found with that is that we actually get greater response from the person who's being referred, because there's that extra little bit of social pressure because their friend is still on the text message that referred them. So they're like, oh, okay, I have to respond, so that they see that I responded back to the loan officer that they referred. So there's a little social engineering in there as well.
I love
Uh,
that.
you touched on another like golden nugget there, that we call the follow-up refer back program. And I want to make sure that our listeners don't miss this either. So when you call the past customer database and you have that relationship call with that person, go back into the CRM. Who was the original deal with? Who was the real estate agent that was attached to it? Who was the title company that was attached to it? Like, how many professional referral partners can you reach out to and touch? Because it's a phenomenal opportunity to reach out, be like, hey, I just spoke to XYZ client, following up, trying to drum up some business for you. And I just remember how great that transaction was to work with you on that. I love working with you so much. I hope you're doing well. Like, it's that reason to connect back, but dropping in the I'm still working the database to generate business for you. It's just a great way to reopen that relationship. So touch the lead, touch the partner is a great part of the database side of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's just such an important reminder. Absolutely. And I think that that's really the key, right? We've just covered the basics here. And so the question really is if you're not doing the basics, what do you need to change up in your schedule this afternoon, tomorrow, in order to start doing these things? And even if it's just one call, right? Like the Pringle, there's the guy named Lee Brown. He taught me the idea of the Pringle, where he's like, you can't open a can of Pringle potato chips and just eat one. You kind of eat the whole can. So like, what's that Pringle? And I think it's the whole idea of trying to build that momentum with that initial call, and then be okay with the fact that it's going to be hard, and then just get yourself rolling. But if it's, one or two calls to get to 10, then start there.
Yep. Yeah, that is so true. Now, we mentioned shiny objects, and we want to stay focused on the fundamentals, but everybody loves a good shiny object every so often. So, Todd, I did want to share one thing with you, because before we went live in the green room, we were chatting a little bit about AI.
Oh yeah, love that shiny object.
So we've actually got conversational AI inside the CRM, because we know that on lead gen, the speed to lead is a lot of where the conversion comes from. It's like the first loan officer that picks up the phone when the lead comes in is typically, I think it's like 78% of borrowers do business with the first lender that they talk to. So that initial response is so important. Well, that comes into play with your database and when you get a qualified agent that you reach out to and they respond back. So what we've actually done is we've taken it so that any inbound message that comes into the CRM has a prompt tied to it. So if it's a database, it's the, hey, I've got a database prompt. If it's a qualified agent, hey, there's a qualified agent prompt. If it's a lead from realtor.com or Zillow or whatever, there's an online real estate lead prompt. We filter every conversation with the prompt through AI, and then AI spits back the response inside the CRM and sends it to the loan officer. So they get an email and it's like, hey, you just got a text message from past clients. So if you log in and you're doing your past client calls and you're running a power dialer and you're on the phone, well, a lot of people will see the phone number come up and text back, right? But you're making your calls, you're on your focus time. Well, AI gets the text, writes the response based on who it is and who's responding back. You get the email and you're just, yeah, I approve that message. That's great. And you just hit yes. And it starts having the text messaging conversation on your behalf. So that's how we're taking AI and applying it to the fundamentals of the mortgage business to really help move the needle. I thought you might find that interesting.
I mean, I love it, right? I mean, I feel like, here we are talking about time, and you've just created an opportunity to compress time for people to make them more efficient. And then you're also giving the best scripts using the AI and making it the easy button for people. And so, but I also heard you say we got the power dialer going. Like you're having to do the activity in order to get those results. But I think that's really it. I mean, the bottom line is we're going to have, AI is not going to replace you, but you're going to be replaced by people who use AI. And that's where I truly say it. I mean, everything over the last however many years it's been that I've known you and watched you, is if there's something new that's coming out, you're the first expert in that arena, making huge strides on behalf of the community. And so I think it's a great thing that people should absolutely explore, because I think in the end, if we can be just slightly better than we are, we're already pretty dang good. But if that'll make you be slightly better, and again, it's just a matter of creating the system you guys have, and then designing it into your calendar, which you can, and then just making sure that you actually do it when it pops up, that it's time to do it, and don't be busy, right? We're all busy. The question is that, are we busy getting results, or are we busy just being busy?
Yeah. Well, so well said. Todd, thank you so much for bringing so much value to the episode today. I sincerely appreciate you. If people want to learn more about you or the charity, where would you like people to go? Where can people get more information?
The charity's First Home IQ, so just hit firsthomeIQ.com. I mean, we'd
Nice.
love to have anyone who is really focused on helping in their community and having done for you content that you can teach. It's a 501c3. We'd love to have you check out. And then you can just find me, probably best is on Instagram at Todd Bookspan, and, winbynoon.com. You'll learn all you need to know about me, but here to help, and just super grateful for the opportunity to catch up and share.
And again, Todd, thank you for being on the show. To all y'all listening out there, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode.